Hi everyone, welcome to DT's premiere where technical drawing is made simple. Please like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to support the channel and help reach more students. Let's begin. Now that we know how to get our 30-degree angle, we're going to learn how to get the opposite of 30. So when we constructed our 60-degree angle, we had to construct our 60-degree angle first and then bisect our 60-degree to get our 30-degree angle. So let's look at the protractor now. So the opposite of 60 was 120. All right. And in order to get the opposite of 30-degree, we need to first construct our 60-degree on the opposite side. Now, on the opposite side, we would have known that our 60-degree would no longer be 60, but it would now be 120. So when we create our angle going from 0 to 120, that's the first thing we need. Then now, we would have known that when we construct our 60-degree, we would construct a 30-degree by bisecting our 0 line and our 60-degree line using our semicircle. Now, when we construct our 120-degree, in order to get the opposite of 30, which we can clearly see is 150, remember, 150 will not be on the right hand side, it will be on the opposite side. So it will now be 150, which is in the middle of 180 and 120. So instead of bisecting our 0 and 60 like we did, we're bisecting the opposites of 0 and 60. The opposite of 0 is 180 and the opposite of 60 is 120. So let me get to it. So let's first construct our 30-degree just to refresh our memory or our mind so we can understand what. So we get our first line, which is 0 and 180. Remember, we need to put our vertex on the line, all right? Then we're going to construct our semicircle. And by now, everybody is supposed to be practicing, so nobody's supposed to be saying, I am going too fast, because we would have already practiced, right? So we're going to construct our semicircle. As usual, we're going to label A and B. Now, to get our 60-degree, remember, we keep the same radius, and then we just scribe and cut our semicircle. Wherever it cuts, we would have drawn a line through this from the vertex to the intersection, and this would have been our. Now remember, we want the opposite of 30, so we're just remembering how to do the 30-degree. So we would have used where the 0 cuts the semicircle. All right, can open it a bit more. Scribe, and we're scribing in the middle, and where the 60 cuts the semicircle. All right, and we're cutting the previous arc. After we draw the line through, this is now 30 degrees. All right. Remember, if the question asks for 30 degrees, you need to also highlight from 0 to the vertex, from the vertex to the 30. That's what they ask for. So you outline those. Now we want the opposite of this, meaning that this will be flipped on the other side. Simple, simple, simple. Let's do it on the other side so you can visualize and see what I'm doing. You're going to first draw your line. Let's say this line is going to be 45 millimeters long. All right. You're going to label your 0, your 180. All right. Then you need to place a vertex. Remember, we always place our vertex before we do anything else. Draw that line. use 5 centimeters. Then we are going to construct our little semicircle. Take my compass is running away. Taking my, there we go. Then now we're going to label A and B. Bear in mind when we were doing the 60 degree, we would have placed our compass now at B and scribe. Now we want the opposite, which is 120. So we're going to place our compass at the opposite, which is A. Remember that the radius needs to be the same, so we don't change the radius for the compass. So we scribe and cut. Wherever it cuts, you're going to draw your line through it, and this is now going to be 120. Bear in mind, you're doing the exact same thing you did for 60, but you're doing it the opposite. All right, so this is now 120. So if the question asks for 120, remember, you're just going to simply darken from 0 to the vertex, and then from the vertex to 120. In this case, though, we want to create the opposite of 30. 60 is the opposite of 120, but we want the opposite of 30. And on the protractor, we would have known that the opposite of 30 is 150. So let's establish that now. So practice as many times as I do so you can get it. All right. So let's do the 45 for this one. Label 0 on one side and 180 the other. Then let us place our vertex. All right. Get your compass now and place your compass on the vertex, and we're going to take our time or semicircle. Remember, we go slightly under just for it to be accurate. All right. Label this side A, label this side B. Remember, we want the opposite, so we're doing it at A. And all the obtuse angles will be attained from the left side or the side where it's located. All the acute angles will be on the right side, which is where B is. All right. And then now we're going to draw our 120. 120. All right. Then now to get our midpoint for this angle, the midpoint or the geometrical center, or just to cut it in half equally, we're going to use the point where the semicircle cuts the 180 line at A. That's going to be our first point. Let's open our compass slightly. And remember, we're scribing in the middle of this because that is all. And you scribe. And then the second point is going to be where our semicircle is cutting the 180 degree line. Sorry, 120. I apologize for that. 120. All right. Grab and cut. Wherever they meet, draw your line through it. And this is now 150. All right. And that is how we get the opposite of 30 degrees. All right. So let's darken the important things. If the question asks for the opposite of 30 or the bisector between 120 and 180, or if it asks for 150 degree angle, you're going to darken from 0 to the vertex and from the vertex to 150. All right, because your angle is going in this direction from 0 to 150. All right. And it's the same thing for this one. Your angle is going from 0 to 120. And it's going from 0 to 30. All right. So it's going from the right side to the left side. So you don't darken 180 and 1 because that's not the angle. All right. That is it for this video. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments below. Have a good one.